if you're going to use these AI tools, you need to start learning how to read terms of service or terms and conditions, because they're absolutely vital. You don't want to end up in a position whereby you've uploaded some original content into a tool and you've given up rights that you don't realize that you've given up, or you create something, you have some output that you can't use commercially because you didn't realize that the terms prohibit that, and you end up in breach of contract. So it's going to be really key to read terms of service for anything that you use. And it's also quite important to keep on top of them because they change constantly. In this video, I'm going to talk about some terms in Udio. If you're watching this, chances are you already know what Udio is. It's a competitor to Suno, and those two are the two most popular music platforms, or AI music platforms, I should say. I've used Suno and understand the interface, but I thought to myself, let me have a look at Udio just to compare and sort of see where maybe there may be strengths in Udio and the weaknesses in Suno, etc. And I'll probably do a separate video whereby I compare the actual functionality between the two systems. But before kind of diving into Udio, if you're thinking about it, you need to understand a really important part of the terms. The summary of it all is you cannot use what you create in Udio. You cannot use that commercially. So if you create something in Udio, you can't actually make money off it at all. You cannot create a song and then sort of release it, put it on Spotify or anything like that. According to the terms, you cannot do that. And let's have a look at the terms and see what they specifically say. The terms were last revised on November 12, 2025. So the first bit we want to look at is section 5.2, which talks about restrictions on your use of the services. So you may not do any of the following in connection with your use of the services unless applicable laws or regulations prohibit these restrictions or you have our written permission to do so. And the one I want to point out to you is number 7, which talks about exploit the services, any output, or the outputs of other users for any commercial purpose. Now that's very clear, but if you need additional evidence, it also says in section 6.3, subject to your compliance with these terms, including without limitation, section 6.4, you may use output solely for your personal and non-commercial purposes, provided that you may not download any copies of your output from the app for any purpose. So, I mean, that's super clear. That means anything you produce, you can't use commercially. Now, I did a video about the Suno terms, and Suno does allow you to use things commercially if you're on the paid plans. And you can check that video out where I kind of go through all the other points around the Suno terms. But I think this is a really key part of the terms, and I would probably avoid using Udio at this point in time. But the terms of service do change constantly. So these were last updated in November 2025. There may be a new update coming soon, so it's probably useful to keep on top of this and see what the changes are. So it may be useful to learn the tool, but if you want to do anything commercial with it, I wouldn't be using it at all, because the terms are very clear that you can't use it for commercial purpose. For completeness, though, there is a clause in the terms that you could possibly infer from it that there is some kind of commercial use, and I'll just go through it now. It says, if you exploit or otherwise make any public use of any output or any content that includes any output, including distribution of output in the form of or as part of audio or audiovisual recordings made available via any third-party application, website, or platform, then you agree to include a credit, notice, or other indicator in connection with such use, example in the track title, in the credit section, etc., that prominently indicates that such output was generated using the services, provided that if you subscribe to any of our paid services, the foregoing obligation shall not apply to any output generated during your subscription to our paid services. So this doesn't grant you any commercial use at all in any way, shape, or form. However, the fact that they're sort of talking about attribution to anything that you use commercially, you could infer from that if you're giving attribution to something you're using commercially, then you must be able to use something commercially. But I think that's probably a stretch. And even if that's true, it doesn't explicitly say you can use this commercially, whereas the other two clauses that I showed explicitly say you cannot use this for commercial purposes. So I think the conclusion really is you can't use it for commercial purposes. There's no point speculating why this specific bit is also in there. But I think in summary, it doesn't grant you commercial use, and therefore you can't use it commercially. And so I would probably stick to tools that explicitly grant you commercial use, like Uno. For now anyway, but as I say, the terms change constantly, and so we just have to see what happens in the future. If you found this useful in any way, shape, or form, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I'll carry on making these videos around the intersection of AI and music. Thank you for watching. Bye. If you found this helpful or useful in any way, shape, or form, please like and comment. And if you found this useful or helpful in any way, shape, or form, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll carry on making these videos. I look at the intersection between AI and music. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.